I think we could see a pretty quick game here with the momentum mattering just so much on these first couple of turns.
Oh, 100%. And I think Incineroar is going to have to be a key piece over on Marco's side. But here we go. Our first top 8 of the event. Incineroar, Porygon 2 over on Marco's side versus Oliver's Blood Moon Ursaluna and that Electabuzz.
Yeah, here's the other option that Oliver has against Trick Room teams, the Electabuzz with Taunt. So not going for the Imprison option with the Indeedee, but instead has the Electabuzz for support.
Yeah, and I do really like that because you actually say that you guarantee a scenario of stopping the Porygon 2 with the Trick Room setup whilst having to respect the Blood Moon Ursaluna. And there's different sort of scenarios where you can just have the follow me redirection support available and go for the all-out damage, as we see with the Terra Normal with the Blood Moon.
Yeah, this is going to be huge damage, but delay the turn.
Delay the turn just a tiny bit.
Let's go ahead and just wait a bit. Let's calm down. Follow me. Let's go hang out with the Electabuzz. Lynch the Ursaluna.
Okay.
Just a Terra Blast with no Terrestrialization from Porygon 2, dealing good damage there onto Electabuzz. Must have gotten that download boost. I missed the cue for that, but most likely got the download boost there. And here is the Incineroar has used the fake out, so now Ursaluna can start going for damage.
And this is sort of the situation where Marco has to respect the taunt on the Electabuzz, hence why needs to try to prioritize whittling its HP down in order to better position yourself and free up the Ursaluna slots, sort of a redirection, because as long as you pick up the KO, given the fact that Oliver's already committed to Terra Normal, you need to be able to just get rid of the Blood Moon ASAP and then set up the Trick Room once there's no taunt on the field in order to start trying to sweep with the Ursaluna.
Yeah, and Electabuzz is actually kind of pinned here, goes for the follow me, can't really go for the taunt because Incineroar could threaten a parting shot. Will knock off the Eviolite here, which means that the Electabuzz, it's really weak, but it's also no longer has the boost from the Eviolite. There's the Blood Moon, though, picking up the one-hit KO onto Incineroar. The Terra Normal, plus the Life Orb, plus the sheer power of a Blood Moon, going to pick up that KO, while Porygon 2 will finally trade for the Electabuzz. Now, the taunts off the field, and the Ursaluna has just used Blood Moon, and cannot use it next turn. Because Porygon 2 may finally be able to switch in, or get the Trick Room up, but here's the secondary option.
Yeah, and I think being able to have the dual modes of the Psy spam at the back, at least in terms of the Psychic Terrain mode, you've got the Sneasler, Unburden, you always guarantee that you're going to be outspeeding everything over on Marco's side outside of Trick Room. However, now there is the Jumpluff. The question is, are you going to be able to set up a Tailwind and then maybe even bluff the Trick Room at this point? Because I could see it going, honestly, either way.
Absolutely. There's definitely so many different options here for Porygon 2 and Jumpluff on Marco's side. Still have to give the raw damage output advantage to Oliver, though. You have the Ursaluna that's Terra Normal, has access to Hyper Voice plus Expanding Force. That's so much damage.
Yeah, and I think at this point, that's essentially what Oliver's recognized. You could try to get rid of your redirect support necessarily, but you've got that damage output, that immediate offensive pressure, which normally Marco has, but the Sleep Powder connects.
Sleep Powder, night, Indeedee, go to bed. Indeedee falls asleep here. The Sleep Powder connects. No action taken this first turn from the Indeedee. That will prevent the Imprison from going off, but it will be a trade for a lot of damage from the Hyper Voice. A critical hit onto Porygon 2 takes it well below half, while Porygon 2 is just trying to chip damage with that Terra Blast. Gets a critical hit in return. Sorry, Ursaluna. Only one crit allowed. You used it all up, and I'm paying it right back.
Yeah, quite literally, and quite immediate as well. But this does allow a free switch in for Oliver to now bring in the Sneasler. And of course, it's going to have the Psychic Seed proc. Most importantly, it's going to outspeed the Jumpluff, and this Porygon 2 can't exactly Terra outside of the weakness, or at least the range of being able to survive an Expanding Force single target. So this may actually opt Marco to consider switching out the Jumpluff, or at least if there's a Torkoal in the back and there's no Charizard Green, you need to be able to switch out the Porygon 2 right now and enable your Jump Up. But then again, still, Unburden is faster than the Jump Up. So it feels like a bit of a pin.
Absolutely. The Unburden really putting a lot of pressure on the Porygon and the Jump Up. Porygon can't safely tear out of anything because of it's a fighting type.
Exactly. It's just very awkward for it.
Yeah, it's going to be so awkward. And the one saving grace for Marco is that Jump Club has put the Indeedee to sleep, which means that it is able to Rage Powder away the Sneasler, this close combat into the Jump Club.
All right.
Marco needs one more turn of sleep from that Indeedee.
Is it going to wake up or not is the real question. Jump Bluff, of course, is out for the count. This is probably going to be an Ursaluna in the back. Oh, it does not wake up, which means the Trick Room is most probably going to get set here. There's no Imprison that was able to lock that in. So Marco has to have the Ursaluna in the back given that play, and now just needs to be able to pick up the KOs.
Yep, still needs to pick up the KOs here. Now, the Sneasler and the Indeedee are both extremely vulnerable here, and it should be a good spot for Marco to be. The Indeedee has a Focus Sash, so it can survive at least one attack, but having both the Porygon 2 and the Ursaluna available, this should be game one for Marco.
Yeah, exactly. You can't Terra out of your weakness to ground either. Terra Blast will connect into the Indeedee in order to break the Focus Sash. Earthquake, enough said. The Porygon 2 doesn't even go down because it's that bulky, even at that range. And there we have it. Marco all of a sudden being able to quite literally flip that game on its head.
Absolutely incredible play there from Marco, getting the sleep onto Indeedee to prevent the Imprison from coming out. And you actually get a real interesting preview of the dynamics of these two teams. Oliver has two options for stopping Trick Room: the Imprison on the Indeedee male and the Taunt on Electabuzz.
Yep.
And Marco has a few options to get around that. You can either go Tailwind and not worry about it, or you can do things like knock out Pokemon or put them to sleep.
Yes.
You can't put the Electabuzz to sleep,
Nope.
so you had to wait until the Electabuzz was out of the picture before Jump Bluff could come in and then counter the secondary anti-Trick Room option.
Yeah, and I think the fact that Marco was sort of kind of baiting the Taunt into that slot, saying, right, okay, I have got this Porygon 2. I'm just going to focus on dealing the damage. I want to get rid of your redirection / Taunt option and want to start whittling down the resources available to Oliver. And that's why you don't even need to go for Trick Room just yet. Make sure you've got Ursaluna in the back for a mid to end game scenario where even if you do get taunted, it's going to probably expire after a couple of turns because of how bulky this Pokemon is.
Absolutely, and here we go, getting ready for game two. Tournament life on the line for Oliver. He will need to make something happen here in game two in order to make it keep his tournament hopes alive and potentially make it into the top 4 and a World's invite. Marco just needs one more win and is going with the classic, tried and true Porygon 2 Incineroar lead. Gets the download boost in the special attack, but is facing down the speedy Tailwind option from the Talonflame and that incredibly powerful Ursaluna.
Yeah, and at this point, I think Oliver really needs to just weigh in on trying to not get rid of any pieces on Marco's side or even prevent a parting shot to come out, because you want to be able to sustain what Marco has on the field, maybe bring in Indeedee, get rid of the Fake Out, and just go for the raw damage with that Blood Moon in order to say, right, I need to make sure the Indeedee is on the field and there's no direct threat on the other side in order to reverse the Trick Room, because there was no way you could have blocked it in that scenario.
Absolutely, that would absolutely be a free opportunity to set up Trick Room. Switching in the Indeedee here does both that and prevents Fake Out from this Incineroar, which means you now have the Terra Normal on the Ursaluna, getting the Jewelry on the head. Knockoff will connect onto Ursaluna, so will reduce the damage a little bit by knocking off the Life Orb. So now it's just a Terra Normal Blood Moon without the Life Orb into the Incineroar, and picked it up with the Life Orb, but does not pick it up without. One hit point activates the Citrus Berry, and now Incineroar is back to healthy.
But this is actually really good for Oliver if you think about it in the macrospective point of view, because you saw right there, Blood Moon is actually slower naturally than the Incineroar outside of Trick Room. So it's going to be having the advantage within Trick Room. Guarantee it actually picks up the KO on Incin, deals damage on the Porygon 2, and then you can have the reversal of the Trick Room from the male Indeedee. But Marco needs to respect that. Does he go for the double Trick Room scenario?
How many Trick Rooms will we see on this next turn?
Left, right, center, we'll find out shortly. But what an amazing situation, and Oliver recognizing that he has to try to go all in right now and force this mind game scenario with Marco. So it's just gonna have to come down to who's gonna make the read. But
oh no!
oh my lord! It doesn't even do that.
With the download boost picks up the KO anyway. It doesn't matter. Incineroar is going to be able to now knock off the Focus Sash onto the Indeedee. Now the Trick Room will be reset because Porygon 2 went on the offensive, but that is a huge offensive piece off the board for Oliver and big damage dealt to Indeedee.
Yeah, and yes, this does invite the Sneasler straight in, but the real question is there enough damage to be able to pick up this Porygon 2? You've got two direct threats on the other side of the field. Incineroar, it is within range of being KO'd, but the Sneasler is the only thing that can hit the Incineroar right now. So you're forced in the scenario where do you double up into the Porygon 2, or do you have to try to accept the Incineroar and just pick up the KO? I feel like the Porygon 2 has to be the priority here.
Absolutely, the Porygon 2 needs to be prioritized here. I think you can see Oliver deciding, do I have the damage with the expanding force and close combat, or do I need to go for a Dire Claw roll? Do I need a paralysis and a full paralysis? Do I need the sleep roll here? This is going to be so tight. Here comes the action. Actually, Sneasler is going to be targeting down the Incineroar so far. This is such a tight position to be in. You can see that Oliver is agonizing over it. No switch from the Incineroar. Dire Claw will pick up the KO there. And now we'll have to see again. We're in those Trick Room mind games. Expanding Force connects from the Indeedee. Now a single target plus boosted by the terrain doesn't even do 50% damage. And Porygon 2 doesn't go for the Trick Room. Doesn't want to get in a situation where the Trick Room could be re-reversed, and instead picks up the KO on Indeedee.
Very well played from Oliver there, understanding that Marco has to respect that male Indeedee. Hence why, not even opting for the Imprison, you would have lost a lot of momentum there, and every little bit of damage really matters on this Porygon 2 in order to put it within range. Now, we know Terra fighting is the Terra option on the Porygon 2, but there's Psychic Terrain on the field, and guess what? The Talonflame is coming back in right now, and it still has Gale Wings. This is such an awkward position for itself.
Well, it does have a target that it can target down now that Jumpluff has come out on the field.
True, very true, but I guess still it's going to have to come down to what do you want to commit with? Do you actually want to try to commit with the double up in the Porygon 2? But then, based off of what we're looking at, the Jumpluff being in the back, it may be heavily suggested. Once again, Ursaluna's in the back, so it could easily be a sleep powder right now that Marco needs to try to connect with, but I do feel like the offensive immediate pressure is definitely in Oliver's favor, but he needs to try and capitalize off of that as best as possible, even with a Flare Blitz close combat double up into that Porygon 2.
All right, it looks like these are the decisions that Oliver is trying to make right now. So tense here. Here comes the terastallization from Marco Silva. Of course, by terastallizing, the Jumpluff would protect it from those Gale Wings, both in terms of the type effectiveness and also now grounding it on the terrain. Of course, Gale Wings giving you the priority on the flying type attacks means that and Psychic Terrain means that Talonflame can't use that. So instead, the Dire Claw comes out from Sneasler and the Flare Blitz comes out from Talonflame, and that's a huge terastallization. Jumpluff survives 2 attacks, and Porygon 2 gets Trick Room up.
The fact that there's redirection and into a Water Terror, the fact that Marco did hold on to that, essentially for me, feels like this has to be game. Because you've got that Ursaluna in the back. The only win con that I see Oliver going for is trying to keep both of those Pokemon on the field and keep Ursaluna away. Hence why we're seeing a bit of a defensive play with the Sneasler on this side.
Yeah, there's Sneasler protecting, and there is Talonflame going for Will-O-Wisp, but here's the problem. Porygon 2 got the download boost. That Terra Blast still deals so much damage into the Talonflame. You can try to stall it all out, but there's just not going to be, there's still offensive threat here. Porygon 2 can clean this up on its own. Yeah,
and even though we have to arguably say there is a Psychic Seed boost to the +1 special defense of the Sneasler, but it's sort of dissipated because of the +1 of download boost with the special attack. Psychic Terrain does now expire. Must feel bad for the Gale Wings.
Gale Wings was the worst possible ability for Talonflame this game.
Essentially, and at this situation, all Marco needs to do is prioritize picking up the KOs swift and fast and having that very healthy and menacing Ursaluna in the back to wrap this up and lock himself into the semis.
Yeah, and I believe we saw 3 turns of Trick Room remaining, which means that Oliver needs to survive for 3 turns. And there is only one way he can do that realistically, and that's hitting multiple protects in a row. This time around, just going to keep the Sneasler from protecting so that you can try to get another chance, but you're put to sleep now by the Jump Bluff. Talonflame has gone down. Sneasler will use its turn of sleep here. So there is still technically a chance that you can wake up and protect. But now you also have to worry about Porygon 2 just recovering. Oh, thanks for the damage.
And I think what Oliver identified there was he had to miss the sleep powder in order to pick up a KO on the Porygon 2 and then play a bit around with the protects and hope there's no further redirection or sleep powders from Jump Bluff. But it is going to be yet another redirection. Terra Blast, Porygon 2 looking very comfortable, ensuring a 2-shot onto the Sneasler, which unfortunately does not wake up.
That looks like it could be a roll. That's just about exactly 50% damage onto the Sneasler. So if Oliver wakes up, may get one more turn here, but it doesn't matter because the Rage Powder is still an option for Jump Bluff. Marco Silva, incredible quick 2-0 win there. And you know what? That was not how I expected that to go as quickly as it did. I expected them to be quick, but it turns out the offensive threat was Porygon 2, and the MVP was probably Jump Bluff for hitting those 2 sleep powders.